My father stared into my eyes and told me, "You're behaving like a selfish brat." After I turned down his demand to let my sister move into my apartment, so I asked him why he wanted her living in the place I bought. For years, those Sunday dinners were the one tradition that stubbornly held us together, a fragile truce against all the bickering, the passive-aggressive jabs, the unspoken resentments. We'd gather at my parents' house, eat roast chicken or lasagna, and pretend we were all on the same page. But last night, halfway through dessert, sitting there with my fork in hand, it hit me. I'd been looking at it all wrong. We were barely into Mom's apple pie when my dad, without an ounce of irony, leaned back and dropped the bombshell. "So," he began, in a voice so casual it sent shivers down my spine, "your sister will be moving into your apartment for the next few months." I swear, the fork almost clattered from my hand. 5 full seconds passed as my brain tried to process what he'd said. I looked up, waiting, praying, for him to laugh, to say it was all a big joke. But no, my mom just sat there, nodding, a placid smile on her face, like this was some generous family decision, not a complete, unsolicited invasion of my private life. Before I could even form a coherent thought, my older brother, Matt, chimed in with a smug smirk. "You can just crash on our couch, like a guest. Don't worry, we'll make some space." He said it like he was doing me a favor, like this was a normal, perfectly reasonable arrangement. My sister, Emily, sat there, phone in one hand, a smirk mirroring Matt's on her face. She didn't even acknowledge me, just a dismissive shrug and, "It's only temporary, Jake. Stop acting like you own the place." And that's when it clicked. They weren't asking. They were telling me. My face stayed neutral. I kept chewing my pie, but inside, my head was spinning. My apartment. My sanctuary. I'd spent years working, saving, scraping by to afford that place. Every bill, every decoration, every inch of that space was mine, a refuge from all this family drama. And now, they were just deciding to move her in, like I was some spare key holder, not the actual, paying tenant. I glanced around the table, half expecting anyone, to step in, to say this was a bit much. But no one did. Not my dad, not my mom, not even Matt, who was clearly relishing my stunned silence. It was like they were all just waiting for me to argue, just so they could label me as selfish. Instead, I just nodded slowly, finished my pie, because what they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that 2 weeks prior, I'd already signed the papers for a brand new place. And this time, it wasn't just any place. It was somewhere they wouldn't dare step foot in, even if they could afford it. The following week, I started noticing how quickly my family moved from "this is happening" to "this has already happened." It was like that dinner conversation had flipped a switch in their heads, and my apartment was no longer mine. It was just the place where Emily will stay for a while. My mom started texting me constantly, asking for little details she easily could have looked up herself. "What's the Wi-Fi password again? Emily will need it. Do you still have clean sheets for the guest bed? Don't buy new ones. She's fine with whatever you have. Oh, and do you still have that desk in the corner? Emily will need a space to work from home. So, if you could clear that off before next weekend." I stared at that last one for a full minute. Clear it off. Like my own workspace was just some pile of clutter to be swept away for her convenience. I didn't reply. I just locked my phone and walked away. 2 days later, I pulled into my building's parking lot and saw Matt's car. I knew that car anywhere. He'd always bragged about buying it himself, conveniently leaving out that my parents co-signed the loan. Sure enough, he was inside my apartment, lounging on my couch, shoes kicked off. "Dude," he said, like we were just two buddies hanging out, "your spare key was still in the same spot. You should really hide that better. Anyone could get in." I didn't even sit down. "What are you doing here, Matt?" "Just checking out the place, seeing how much space I'm going to have," he shrugged. "Mom wanted me to make sure there's room for her stuff." I blinked at him. "You couldn't text me first?" He grinned. "Relax. We're family. You act like I broke in or something." I didn't say anything. I just stood there, jaw tight, until he finally got up to leave. On his way out, he glanced around my living room and dropped another casual bomb. "You might want to move your gaming setup into storage. Emily's not going to want that taking up space." Then he left. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, fighting the urge to scream into my pillow. It wasn't just the intrusion, it was the assumption. The way they all just decided that my life could be put on hold so my sister could have a convenient crash pad. I remembered every time growing up when something of mine became community property. The video game console I'd saved months for, suddenly in my brother's room because he uses it more. The car I bought in college, mysteriously disappearing for weekends because Emily really needed to get to her friend's house. And every single time I protested, I was met with the same tired lecture: family shares. Jake, stop being selfish. Except, sharing never seemed to go both ways. 3 days later, Mom called me while I was at work. "Hey, sweetheart, just a heads up. Your sister will be coming by with Dad on Saturday to drop off a few things. You'll be home, right?" "I work Saturdays," I said flatly. "Oh, that's fine. Just leave the key under the mat like you used to. We'll get everything set up." I felt my stomach twist. "Mom, you can't just..." She cut me off with a bright, dismissive laugh. "Jake, stop worrying. It's not a big deal. She'll barely take up any space, and it's only temporary." Only temporary. Those words rang in my head for the rest of the day. When Saturday rolled around, I did not leave a key under the mat. Instead, I stayed home, sitting at my kitchen counter with a cup of coffee, waiting. Sure enough, I heard the knock right on time. "Jake, you there?" My dad's voice. I opened the door and stepped aside, letting them in. Emily breezed past me without so much as a hello, dragging a suitcase. My dad followed with a box, nodding at me like we were business partners. "We'll just put these in the guest room," he said. "It's not a guest room," I replied, my voice calm but sharp. "It's my office." Emily rolled her eyes. "Not anymore." I stood in the hallway, arms crossed, watching as they unloaded more boxes from the car: clothes, makeup bags, a full-length mirror. By the time they were done, half my office looked like a department store clearance section. My dad patted me on the shoulder as he left. "Thanks for being so understanding, son. You're doing the right thing." I didn't reply. I just closed the door behind them and stared at the room that used to be mine. That night, I got a text from Matt. "Mom says thanks for cooperating. Em says she's moving in officially next Friday. Don't worry, I'll help you get your stuff out." Get my stuff out. I read that message 3 times before setting my phone down. My hands were shaking, not with fear, but with a strange, cold calm I hadn't felt in years. Because while they were all so busy planning how to rearrange my life, I was already 3 steps ahead of them. By the time next Friday rolled around, I had convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't actually go through with it. That some part of them would realize how insane this was and back off. I left work early that day, just in case. And when I pulled into the parking lot, I knew something was wrong before I even unlocked the door. My blinds were open. I never leave my blinds open. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and my heart dropped. The place looked completely different. My office wasn't my office anymore. My desk had been shoved into the living room, half disassembled, my monitor leaning against the wall. My bookshelf was empty, all my books and papers stuffed into cardboard boxes that hadn't been there that morning. And standing right in the middle of it all was my sister, humming to herself as she taped up another box. "Oh, you're early," she said, as if I was the one intruding. "We decided it would be easier to just get this over with before you got home." I just stared at her. "You what?" "Matt had the spare key, so we let ourselves in," she said casually, as if breaking into my home was just another Friday afternoon chore. "Don't worry, we didn't touch your room. We just needed to clear space so I can start moving my stuff in this weekend." I felt the blood rush to my face. "You touched all of this without asking me." She sighed dramatically, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "Jake, it's not a big deal. Mom said you'd be fine with it. Besides, I'm going to need this space more than you. You can work from the couch for a while. It's not the end of the world." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was a group text from my mom. "Glad Emily got a head start. We'll bring the rest of her things tomorrow morning. Jake, could you grab some groceries tonight? She's vegetarian, so make sure you get the right stuff." The right stuff. I walked into the kitchen, trying to calm down, but it was like everywhere I looked, I saw another sign of how far this had gone. My coffee mugs were stacked differently. My fridge had new containers inside, labeled with my sister's name. She had actually rearranged my fridge like she was the one paying rent. And then I saw it. On the counter was a small stack of envelopes, mail I hadn't opened yet. One of them was slit open. I grabbed it, and my stomach dropped when I saw what it was: a bank statement. "You opened my mail?" She didn't even flinch. "Relax. Mom told me to check if you'd paid the utility bill on time because we didn't want to move me in if the power was about to get shut off or something. Something inside me snapped. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even raise my voice. I just said, very quietly, "Get out." She laughed. "What? Get out?" Her laugh faltered. "Jake, stop being dramatic." I stepped closer, and for the first time in years, I think she realized I wasn't bluffing. "This is my home. You don't touch my things. You don't open my mail. And you do not walk in here with a spare key like you own the place. Get out. Now." For a moment, there was silence. Then she rolled her eyes, grabbed her purse, and said, "Fine, but Mom and Dad will hear about this." She slammed the door behind her. Not even 15 minutes later, my phone started blowing up. First, Mom. "Jake, what on earth did you say to your sister? She's crying in the car right now." Then, "Dad, you need to get over yourself. She's your sister, and she needs a place to stay. You're acting like a selfish brat." And then Matt, "Nice job, man. You made Mom cry. Hope you're proud." I didn't answer any of them. I just sat on the couch, staring at the boxes of my things that they had packed up without permission. My home suddenly didn't feel like my home anymore. It felt like enemy territory. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my sister's face, heard her laughing as she taped up my life and shoved it into boxes. By morning, my anger had cooled into something sharper, something colder. I stopped by a hardware store on my way home from work that evening and bought a new deadbolt. By midnight, the spare key that Matt had used so casually was officially useless. But I didn't tell them that. Instead, I waited. And when Saturday morning came, and they all showed up at my door with boxes and bags and plans for Emily's new room, they found themselves standing in the hallway, knocking on a door that wasn't going to open. I stayed very, very quiet. I sat on the couch with a cup of coffee, my phone buzzing on the table, and waited until the knocking stopped and the angry texts started pouring in. Because this was the moment I'd been waiting for. By Saturday night, my phone was a war zone. Missed calls from Mom, Dad, Matt, even a few from numbers I didn't recognize, probably my sister's friends who had been drafted to help her move in. The group chat was a mess of messages, each one nastier than the last. Unbelievable. You've always been difficult, but this takes the cake. You're abandoning your family when they need you. You know, Mom's blood pressure goes up when she's stressed, right? Hope you're happy. The one that got me the most was from my dad. You better think long and hard about what you're doing. Family doesn't turn its back on family. If you lock her out again tomorrow, you're not welcome at the house. Not welcome at the house. I just stared at those words until they blurred on my screen. It was one of those sentences that felt heavier than it should, like it was dragging years of history along with it. I'd been welcome my entire life, but only on their terms. I was welcome as long as I agreed to babysit, lend money, fix things, give rides, and generally make my siblings' lives easier. I was welcome as long as I never said no. But the moment I drew a line, suddenly I wasn't welcome at all. I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off my phone, left it on the kitchen counter, and went for a walk around the block. It was a quiet night, the kind of night where you can hear your own footsteps echo. For the first time in a long time, I let myself really think about what I wanted. Not what they wanted, not what they expected, not what would keep their peace. And what I wanted was peace. My peace. I wanted to live in a space where I didn't have to look over my shoulder, wondering if someone had gone through my mail, or opened my fridge, or packed up my books without asking. I wanted to stop feeling like a guest in my own home. By the time I got back, I'd made up my mind. I spent the rest of the night quietly going through my things, not packing them this time, just taking inventory, sorting what I wanted to take with me, what I wanted to donate, what I wouldn't mind leaving behind. It was almost soothing, like I was reclaiming each item one by one. This is mine. This stays with me. This I can let go of. I stayed up until 3 a.m., moving from room to room, a kind of calm determination settling over me. The apartment was a mess of piles and open boxes by the time I collapsed into bed, but for the first time in days, I slept through the night. Sunday morning came with more banging on my door, louder this time. "Jake, open up," my mom's voice. I stayed still. "I know you're in there. This is ridiculous." When I didn't answer, she switched tactics. "You're being cruel, Jake. Your sister's in tears. She doesn't have anywhere else to go." That part stung, not because I believed it, but because I knew how good they were at making me feel guilty. Emily had options. She had 2 sets of grandparents who adored her, half a dozen friends with couches, and a boyfriend who, as far as I knew, had his own apartment. But none of that mattered. My place was the most convenient. So, in their minds, it was the only option. After a few more minutes of yelling, the voices faded. A while later, I heard a car door slam and tires squeal out of the parking lot. I spent the rest of Sunday in near silence. No TV, no music, just the sound of me taping up boxes and stacking them by the door. On Monday morning, I put in for a few days off work and drove straight to the leasing office. The property manager looked surprised when I told her I wanted to terminate my lease early, but she didn't ask questions once I handed her the fee. "Do you have a new place lined up?" she asked. I smiled for the first time in days. "Yeah," I said, "I do." The papers I'd signed 2 weeks earlier were already burning a hole in my bag. That afternoon, I rented a storage unit across town and started ferrying my things over in small trips. Desk first, then books, then kitchen items. I did it all quietly, methodically, like I was erasing my life from this place, one carload at a time. I didn't tell a soul. By Wednesday, the apartment was starting to look empty. If my family showed up unannounced again, they'd notice, but part of me almost wanted them to. That night, I got another message from my dad. "Final chance to do the right thing. We're coming by on Saturday morning. Either let your sister in, or we'll take matters into our own hands." Take matters into our own hands. I stared at that sentence for a long time, feeling a strange mix of dread and relief, because it meant they were going to cross a line. And once they did, there would be no coming back. And I was ready for that. By Thursday morning, something inside me had shifted. The sadness and guilt that had been eating at me since this whole thing started were gone, replaced by a kind of calm clarity. It was like I had finally stopped trying to make them happy and started thinking about what would make me happy. I woke up early, brewed a strong cup of coffee, and sat at my kitchen counter with my laptop open. The apartment was half empty now, my desk gone, bookshelves cleared, and instead of feeling depressing, it felt liberating. Every bare wall was a reminder that I was leaving this behind, that I was building something new for myself. At noon, I drove across town to my new place. The first time I'd seen it 2 weeks ago, I knew it was perfect. Bigger than my current apartment, in a better neighborhood, with a building security system that would make it impossible for anyone to just waltz in. No spare key hidden under the mat. No shared walls with nosy neighbors who might let someone in just because they're family. When I stepped inside, the smell of fresh paint hit me. The movers had already delivered my new couch and dining table, both of which I'd saved up for over months. I ran my hand along the countertop, picturing what it would be like to come home here after work. No surprise guests. No boxes taped shut without my consent, no one telling me where I could and couldn't sit. I set my bag down and just stood there for a minute, taking it all in. This was mine. The next few days became a blur of activity. During the day, I worked on getting the new place set up, curtains, furniture, kitchen supplies. And at night, I returned to my old apartment to load my car with whatever was left. I didn't rush. I took my time, savoring the process of reclaiming every last item. One night, as I was packing up my game console, I found myself smiling. A few years ago, my brother had borrowed this exact console and kept it for almost a year before I finally got it back. Now, it was going into a place where no one would touch it unless I said they could. By Friday, my old apartment was nearly empty, except for a few pieces of furniture I didn't care about. I left them there deliberately. Let them try to move in now. There was nothing left worth taking. That evening, I stood in my new living room with a pizza box on the counter and the city lights shining through the window. I hadn't told anyone about the move, not even my closest friend, because I wanted this to be mine first. For the first time in weeks, I felt light, free. But the texts from my family didn't stop. Saturday morning, right on schedule, the barrage began. "Be there in 10. Hope you've come to your senses. Don't make this worse than it has to be." I didn't reply. I drove over to the old apartment, just to watch from the parking lot. Sure enough, my parents' car pulled up, followed by Matt's truck. I stayed far enough back that they couldn't see me, just close enough to watch them march up to the door. When they realized the locks had been changed, I saw my dad's shoulders tense. Matt tried the spare key 3 times before hurling it onto the ground. Then came the knocking. Loud, insistent, relentless. I didn't move. I just sat there in my car, sipping coffee, and watched as the frustration built. After about 15 minutes, my mom tried calling me. I let it ring out. Eventually, they left, but not before taping a handwritten note to the door. When I walked up later to see what it said, I had to laugh. Jake, you forced our hand. If you're not here by tonight to let Emily in, we're calling the landlord. This is bigger than you. It's about family. Family. I took a photo of the note, peeled it off the door, and crumpled it into my pocket, because by that point, it wasn't my problem anymore. I drove straight to my new place, where my desk was already set up, my fridge was fully stocked, and my walls were exactly how I wanted them. No one had touched anything. And for the first time, I felt like I was in control. Over the next week, I settled into my new routine. Work, gym, home. Quiet mornings with coffee, quiet nights with movies or music. I even started seeing some old friends again, people I hadn't hung out with in ages because every free weekend used to be consumed by family obligations. I didn't tell my family where I was living. When they texted, I replied less and less until eventually I stopped answering entirely. At first, there was anger. You're being ridiculous. You're tearing this family apart. If something happens to Emily because of you, that's on your conscience. Then came the guilt. Mom hasn't been sleeping. Is that what you wanted? Your dad's been stressed about this for days. And finally, the silence. By the end of the month, the group chat was quiet. No calls, no texts. It should have hurt, but instead, I felt stronger. Because while they thought they were punishing me by cutting me off, what they were really doing was giving me the one thing I had always wanted, space. And now that I had it, I wasn't planning on giving it back. About 2 weeks after I'd fully moved into my new place, I got a call from my old landlord. At first, I thought it was just to follow up about the lease termination, but the tone of his voice told me something was wrong. Jake, hey, he said, hesitating a little. I just wanted to check in. Did you give your family permission to start moving things into the apartment after you moved out? I sat up straighter. No. What? He sighed. I thought so. I went by to do the final walkthrough today and noticed some, let's just say, personal items in the unit. Women's clothing, a vanity mirror, a couple of boxes labeled makeup. The lease is still in your name until the end of the month, so technically you're responsible for whatever's in there. I felt a slow smile forming. Thanks for letting me know, I said. I'll take care of it. As soon as I hung up, I drove straight to the apartment. Sure enough, my sister had been busy. The office, what used to be my office, was now decked out with her things. A half-assembled clothing rack stood in the middle of the room, and there was even a framed photo of her and her boyfriend on the windowsill. I just stood there for a minute, taking it all in. This wasn't a temporary crash pad. She was moving in like this was hers, like she'd won. And the thing was, she hadn't even told me. She hadn't asked for a key. She hadn't even texted me. It was perfect. I snapped photos of everything. The boxes, the mirror, the photo, proof that she'd taken over a space she had no legal right to occupy. Then I gathered everything up carefully, without damaging anything, and carried it out to my car. I didn't throw it away. No, that would be too easy. I just moved it all into the storage unit with the rest of my things and locked it up tight. When I left the apartment, it was completely empty again. By the time I got back to my new place, my phone was lighting up with angry messages. Where's my stuff? You had no right to touch anything. Mom and Dad are furious. You need to bring it back right now. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up the photos I'd taken. Each one was time-stamped and geotagged, solid proof. And while I was at it, I drafted a short, polite email to the landlord. Hi. Just wanted to confirm that I've cleared the unit completely. There should be no further issues. Please let me know if anyone attempts to enter the property without authorization. I hit send and sat back, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Control. That night, I poured myself a drink and started thinking bigger. This wasn't just about keeping my sister out of the apartment anymore. This was about every single time they had steamrolled me. Every time they called me selfish for saying no. Every time they treated me like a backup plan instead of a person. I opened a notebook and started writing. Step 1. Secure everything. Bank accounts, utilities, digital passwords. I changed them all, one by one. No more just-in-case shared logins. No more documents sitting in unlocked drawers. Step 2. Cut off the spare keys. I called the leasing office and confirmed that I was the only person authorized to access the unit until the end of the lease. Then I double-checked the new place's security system. Step 3. Get leverage. And that's when things got really interesting. While scrolling through social media that weekend, I stumbled across a post my sister had made. It was a photo of her sitting on my old couch, the one I'd left behind deliberately, with the caption, "Finally got my own place. Thanks to the best family ever for making it happen." Hundreds of likes, comments congratulating her, people asking when they could come over. And there, in the background of the photo, was one of the boxes I'd moved into storage, timestamped just a day earlier. I screenshotted everything. Then I checked her boyfriend's page, and sure enough, there he was, bragging in the comments about how lucky they were that they didn't have to pay rent for a few months while they saved for a trip to Europe. That was the moment it all clicked. This wasn't about my sister being desperate for a place to stay. This was about convenience. About them using me to make their lives easier so they could funnel money towards something else. And suddenly, I knew exactly how to make this hurt. I spent the rest of the weekend setting things up, moving the last of my belongings out of the old apartment, scheduling the final inspection, and letting the landlord know I'd be turning in the keys early. I didn't tell my family a thing. Instead, I waited until everything was ready. Because when the moment came, when they showed up expecting to find my apartment waiting for them, they were going to be met with something much, much different. And I wasn't just going to tell them no this time. I was going to show them. Saturday came faster than I expected, but I was ready. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat at the counter in my new apartment. The quiet felt almost luxurious. My phone buzzed around 9 a.m. with a message from Matt. "On our way. Hope you're ready to make this right." I didn't reply. Instead, I grabbed my bag, tossed my new set of keys inside, and drove across town one last time. I parked a few blocks away, out of sight, and walked up just as my family was arriving. I could hear their voices before I turned the corner. My sister laughing, my mom talking about how she wanted to repaint her room, my dad carrying a box, and Matt with a mattress strapped to the back of his truck. The sight of it all made me laugh. They were so sure, so smug, so ready to take what they thought was theirs. I let them get to the door before I approached. "Morning," I said, leaning casually against the railing. They all turned, startled. "Jake," my dad said, narrowing his eyes. "Good. Let's get this over with. Open the door." I smiled politely. "Can't do that." "What do you mean you can't?" my sister snapped. "We've been more than patient. This drama has gone on long enough." "Oh, it's over," I said calmly. "Just not the way you think." I pulled the keys from my pocket, not the ones they knew, but the brand new set from my new apartment, and dangled them in front of me. "This place," I said, gesturing at the door. "It's empty. Completely cleared out. Lease is terminated. Keys are turned in. Whatever you thought you were moving into no longer exists." The look on their faces was priceless. "What?" my mom said, her voice barely a whisper. "You heard me," I said. "I moved out 2 weeks ago. I have my own place now. Somewhere you can't just walk into whenever you feel like it." My sister's face turned bright red. "You had no right." "No right." I cut her off, still calm, still steady. "This was my apartment. I paid the rent. I paid the utilities. And you decided, without asking me, that you were entitled to it. You packed up my things, opened my mail, used a spare key to let yourself in. You crossed every line there was to cross." I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. "And just in case you think I'm bluffing, here's proof. Photos of your stuff in the apartment, dated and timestamped. Screenshots of your little finally got my own place post. Messages from your boyfriend bragging about living rent-free. Do you want me to send these to the landlord?" Because I could. He wasn't thrilled when he saw what you'd done. My dad stepped forward, bristling. "Jake, this isn't necessary." "It is," I said quietly, holding his gaze. "Because this isn't about a room or a couch or who sleeps where. This is about the fact that you all decided my life was yours to control, and I'm done letting you." For a moment, there was silence. Then Matt swore under his breath, ripping the mattress off the truck and shoving it back inside. "This is insane," my sister hissed. "You're seriously just leaving me with nowhere to go?" I shrugged. "You have plenty of places to go. Grandma's, friends' houses, your boyfriend's. Or here's an idea. You could get your own apartment, like the rest of us had to." She gaped at me, and I could see my mom about to jump in with another guilt trip, so I cut her off before she could start. "Don't," I said. "Don't tell me I'm cruel or selfish or tearing the family apart. I tried to set boundaries, and you ignored them. You forced my hand. This is on you." I slung my bag over my shoulder, gave them one last look, and said, "Enjoy the empty apartment. I'm sure the next tenant will love what you've done with the place." Then I walked away. Behind me, I heard my dad call my name once, sharply, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Instead, I got in my car, drove across town, and unlocked the door to my new home. It was quiet. Sunlight streamed through the windows, the city humming faintly outside. I set my bag down, took a deep breath, and felt the tension drain out of my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I was completely, entirely free of them. But as satisfying as it felt, I knew it wasn't the end. Because now that I had distance and proof, I could finally decide just how far I wanted this to go. And I had a few ideas. I didn't hear from them for 2 full days after that Saturday confrontation. 2 blissful, quiet days where my phone stayed face down on the counter and I cooked dinner in peace, watched a movie on my new couch, and actually slept without waking up angry at 3 a.m. But silence never lasts forever in my family. By Tuesday afternoon, the group chat came alive again. Only this time, it wasn't yelling, it was damage control. Jake, we overreacted. Your dad wants to talk. Clear the air. Your sister is upset, but she'll get over it if you apologize. Apologize? That word made me laugh out loud. I didn't reply. Instead, I waited until Wednesday, then sent them all a single message. Just a heads up, the lease is officially closed. The landlord has photos of the place completely empty and knows no one has permission to enter. If any of you try to access it again, it's trespassing. Take care. I expected anger. What I got instead was panic. Matt called first. Dude, what are you doing? You're making this way bigger than it needs to be. Bigger than when you broke into my apartment and packed my things without asking? I said, my voice calm, almost conversational. He hesitated. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I cut him off. And now it's over. The locks are changed. The lease is closed. And I'm done. He didn't know what to say to that. The next day, Mom called. She didn't start with an apology. She started with tears. Jake, I don't understand why you're doing this. We're your family. We've always been there for you. I closed my eyes and let her talk, all the while staring out the window at the skyline. You've changed, she said finally, her voice breaking. You're so cold now. No, I said quietly. I'm just done being walked on. You don't get to decide my life for me anymore. You don't get to tell me who lives in my home or where I sleep or what I spend my money on. Those days are over. She sniffled. So what now? You're just cutting us off. I let the silence stretch before I answered. No, I'm just putting boundaries in place. If you want to see me, you can ask. If you want to visit, you can wait for an invitation. And if you ever pull something like this again, you won't hear from me for a very, very long time. There was a long pause on the other end. Then softly she said, your father won't like that. I smiled to myself. Then I guess I'll have to get used to it. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control, confidence, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that for once, they had to live with my decision instead of the other way around. A week later, my sister posted another photo on social media. Not from my apartment this time, but from a tiny sublet across town. The caption read, finally got a place of my own for real this time. The comments were full of congratulations again, but I noticed something different this time. No mention of family, no bragging about rent-free living. I didn't comment. Instead, I closed the app, leaned back on my new couch, and looked around my apartment, my quiet, perfect apartment that no one but me had a key to. For the first time, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. They had tried to take something from me, and I hadn't just stopped them. I'd taken everything back. And as I sat there, the last bit of tension leaving my chest, I thought about the note they had left on my old door. This is bigger than you. It's about family. Maybe they were right. Because now they knew exactly how big I could get when I finally stopped letting them shrink me down to fit their version of family. And the next time they wanted to cross a line, they'd remember this, because I'd just drawn the clearest one of my life. That was the last message, the last confrontation, the last time I let them take up space in my head. When my phone buzzed again later that night with another group chat notification, I just smiled, turned it face down, and whispered to the empty room. They can knock all they want, but this door stays locked. Seriously, what would you have done in my position? Have you ever had to draw such a hard line with family, even when it felt like you were tearing everything apart? I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below.